Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today's November 5th, 2022, and let's get over the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So today I wanted to go through first the map and just kind of go through an overview of what is happening. Not much is happening still. Again, winter is coming. There's a lot of mobilized Russian soldiers on the front lines. It makes it more difficult for us to have this element of surprise. We don't have that element of surprise anymore. The Russians are completely aware of the possibility of the Ukrainian advances anywhere on the front lines, so they're much better prepared in the sense that they have more men, more equipment, and they're really trying to be more alert at this current situation. So let's get over through Kherson first. I indicated 2 days ago that the Ukrainians managed to take this settlement here that is close to Snihurivka. And I think this is potentially us trying to cut off the Russians from behind and perhaps, encircle them right through Novakhovka. And I also believe, as I've said previously, that the Russians are perhaps going to retreat on the left side of the Dnipro River, but they're going to still leave their less experienced, kind of, less able soldiers on this side of Kherson to defend until the very last man. And as I've indicated, they've already made sure that these men will not be able to escape. They shot a lot of boats in Kherson, the pleasure kind of fishing crafts that were stationed here. So, if any Russian mobilized soldier thinks of leaving Kherson, they won't be able to. And so I think they're going to leave them out here to just really create a line of defense as the more experienced soldiers will be able to really dig in on this side and really make it hard for the Ukrainians to cross the river once we take this area completely. And I truly believe that by the end of this year and perhaps the first month of 2023, we should be able to take Kherson in its entirety. It's going to be a slow grind, but I think that, with the weather coming really quickly, the winter weather being very harsh, especially in this area because it's Ukrainian steppes. And as soon as the cold and the wind comes through, it's going to be hell for the Russian soldiers. They're not going to be equipped to handle that type of weather. And so it's going to make it easier for us because we're better equipped and we're going to be able to storm through their positions very quickly and grab this territory within next 2, 3 months. So that's that for Kherson. And other news as well, I wanted to go through Bakhmut because the Russians still put a very huge emphasis in taking Bakhmut. They're throwing everything possible, and that's why they've had such catastrophic losses in this area specifically. I think that's the bulk of their losses is around here because they're throwing Wagner PMCs, prisoners, the mobilized men, everything they're throwing it here. It's like non-stop zombie waves essentially for the Ukrainian army. And Bakhmut is essentially not a city anymore. It's pulverized to bits due to the tactics that the Russians are employing here. And so the Russians are still trying to push in the same directions. They're trying to encircle the city by pushing it, through this main highway. And again, they're trying to go all around much further behind Bakhmut, so they're capable of, encircling the behind the lines of the Ukrainian army. And it makes it more difficult as well because if we look at the map here, the topography, it favors the Ukrainian army. We have, we're not talking about massive mountains here, but there are hills that give us advantage in seeing where the enemy moves. And with the Stuhnas, if you guys don't know what the Stuhnas are, it's the remote controlled missiles. And we've seen hundreds of videos of them hitting the Russians with accurate precision. If you have the high ground, the Stunas are just deadly. And if they're moving with tanks, APCs, vehicles, they're going to get picked off apart very easily. And with the drones that we have as well that can throw the grenades from top to bottom, it's also making their life hell here. There's been so many videos coming out the last 2 weeks of just Russians digging in around these front lines, having foxholes and trenches, and we're just picking them off apart with the drones and missiles and things like that. So they're having a really hard time pushing through. As you've seen, as you see here, the gray area. This is as far as they were able to get to. but then we pushed them back to this current position, and essentially they're just throwing men to their deaths. So in Bakhmut direction, it's relatively stable. We have things under control, but it is very still difficult for our Ukrainian army to hold on because Russia is still throwing everything they have on this direction here, and they're trying to just find any little pocket where they can have a breakthrough. That's what matters to them. And so you can see all these red arrows. It's every single attack they're trying to make so they can kind of, somehow get through in one of our through our defenses. And again, not much has changed north of Donetsk in Luhansk region. We're still fighting towards Svatove. You can see that the Russians managed to push back a little bit. Again, it's nothing much. It's maybe a kilometer here, a couple hundred meters back. So there's still a lot of fighting ongoing back and forth here. But we're still, doing the same thing. We're fighting and we're trying to find a way that we can break through their defenses and either encircle them from the north, as you see here, just essentially go north of Svatove and south of Svatove. And the Russians are also doing counterattacks, which are pretty much useless. Nothing really is changing. So we still have the initiative, but again, with the winter coming, I believe that that's going to be a crucial moment for us to really, really put a really heavy attack on the Russians. We've seen how poorly equipped they are. I cannot stop emphasizing on that. They're just not going to be ready for this winter. And the only reason why they're capable of really holding this defense here is because of the thousands and thousands of mobilized men that they've put in these big settlements. And I'm saying big settlements, but about 20 to 30,000 people, like in Svatove and Lysychansk and Bilohorivka. All these cities, or Kremina, all these cities are about 20 to 30,000 people. And so they put a lot of mobilized men, all of these settlements all across the front line, which is why, it's more difficult for us to have a breakthrough because that's what Putin is betting on is just quantity instead of quality, which for now works in terms of defending. So that's that. Now let's get over the news in Ukraine, and I have a couple articles. So first of all, the MQ-9 Reaper could be provided to Ukraine. That's massive news. The Reaper is essentially a huge symbol of the American army. It has been super effective in the Middle East, conducting, really remote operations. And if we have those, these are like 10 times better than Bayraktars. They have, better range. They have greater payload. As you can see here, it carries really good payload and better optics. So everything about this Reaper is just, I think it's going to be just as game changing as a HIMARS system because we're going to be able to go much further inside Russian occupied territory and hit them, and it's going to be catastrophic for the Russians. If we get those, trust me, we're going to get back a lot of territory within the next few months. These are going to be game changing, just like the HIMARS systems. So let's hope that we get them. It's not yet approved, but if it's approved, watch out. Again, the US announces another package, military aid package of $400 million for Ukraine. What is in that package? It's 45 T-72 tanks that would be coming from the Czech Republic that will be refurbished. And what will be refurbished is their optics, communications, and armor packages, which really would mean it's a huge upgrade because the T-72s bare bone are pretty much useless. But if you upgrade their optics, communications, the cannon, everything inside, it can be a game-changing tank. Also, 1100 Phoenix Ghost tactical UAVs, so drones, and 40 armored boats, which is huge. This means that the US is really counting on us to cross the Dnipro River in Kherson to start fighting on the left bank of the Dnipro River in south of Ukraine. So this is really huge, and again, a huge thanks to the U.S. for providing us for military aid. We need that constantly, and that's what's going to help us win this war. So China warned Russia about nukes. So Xi warned Putin about using nuclear weapons, and he mentioned that this was a red line. So of course it is a red line. Nobody wants to get into nuclear, warfare. And especially when it's a bigger country using a nuke against a country that doesn't have nukes. This sets a precedent for all the countries that don't have nukes right now or a nuclear program that they need to get a nuclear program and nukes. And essentially, it's going to rearm the entire planet with countries that don't have currently nuclear weapons that potentially would be favorable to having them because of what Russia is currently doing, which is obviously not favorable for China because they don't want Taiwan to get nukes, and that would be very unfavorable for them, and also bad for business, right? In Europe, having nukes being deployed and used is not good business for China, that's for sure. North Korea is likely sending supplies to Russia. So there have been pictures flowing around yesterday that there's a train. So this is the North Korean side of the Tumen River, and this is the Russian side. And there was a satellite imagery that was showing that the train was moving towards the Russian side, and it appears that there was shells and ammunition, potentially, ammunition inside of that train. So that's pretty pathetic in my opinion that Russia is begging North Korea for weapons. If it's true, and I'm very sure that it is true, again, Shoigu, the Minister of Defense, there were reports that early on in the war, he had diplomatic missions in China, Iran, and North Korea to ask these countries for weaponry and ammunition. And it seems like now they're getting that from these countries for perhaps certain concessions, certain, obviously it's not like they're gonna get it for nothing. So North Korea is perhaps asking Russia for grain and other type of things that they require because North Korea, let's face it, has had, a lot of trouble with famines and lack of true food supplies. So perhaps, there's an exchange going on between the two countries. So yeah, that's interesting and in my opinion, pretty embarrassing for Russia to be begging a country that is still stuck in the Soviet era for weapons and ammunition. But that's the reality of things for Putin at this point. He has no choice. And the Russian grain deal U-turn leaves Putin humiliated and Erdogan jubilant. So this is a little bit late, but if you guys remember last week, we mentioned that the Ukraine army struck the Black Sea Navy of the Russian army, and that caused a huge fury within the Russians, and they say we're canceling this grain deal we have with Ukraine. We're not letting the ships through anymore. But the UN and Turkey just said no, we're continuing on with this deal. This is important. And Erdogan really put an emphasis on that because he realized that's like for him it's a really geopolitical advantage that he has. The fact that the Ukrainian agricultural production is critically important for global food security, especially for the Asian and North African states that import the Ukrainian grain. So that's why Turkey and Erdogan matter to them. And so the fact that Erdogan brokered and guaranteed the safe supply from Ukraine kind of raises his international weight. So he no way would have agreed to just let Russia dictate the cancellation of this grain deal. And so Russia had no choice but to say, oh, well, I guess, we don't really have a choice and we're just going to agree to this grain deal until November or end of November. So Ankara responded to Moscow's rudeness, right? They responded really tough on this because Ankara doesn't usually have a very like strong, position. They try to be more balanced as it's indicated in this article, but they said no way. So again, it's another lever that Putin is losing is this grain, blackmailing that he's trying to do right now, and Erdogan is taking advantage of it by really positioning himself as a geopolitical leader in the Black Sea and the Bosphorus Strait. And two videos I want to show you. So the first one is the reality of the front lines in Bakhmut. So these are soldiers in the Bakhmut direction. They're complaining that they're not getting the support necessary. Um, there's enemies all around them. And unfortunately, that's the reality of things. So let's take a look at this video.
Так, братва. Братаны, наш последний бой,
It's
он
3 minutes,
главный
so
самый,
I'm not
да?
going to show the entire video, but
Напиздували пидорасам. Сука, аж плакать хочется, блядь, если
yeah,
честно, блядь. А все нормально.
the morale is
Все
still
уже
high.
понял.
The morale's still high. They know what they're fighting for, but it's difficult for them. You can
Кругова
see,
оборона. З усіх сторон підараси.
yeah, they're surrounded on all sides.
П'ять. Вчора от бали. Еліту Росії кришили вчора. І сьогодні. Стоїм до кінця.
У мене ще є, блядь, за 1000 патрон, блядь. Це на спальні.
Дивіться,
Yeah.
українці, це відео і пам'ятайте, хто тут стоїть.
These are the heroes of Ukraine. These are the
Як ми
men,
стоїм.
really defending our front lines and making sure that, the Russian army doesn't get through.
Покажу свою крайню позицію. Сьогодні 1 листопада. Я всіх дуже люблю вас. Ой, мої рідненькі. Нас криють безбожно.
Yeah, so the Russians are using artillery, everything they have, they're throwing on these front lines in Bakhmut.
Цініть кожен свій день.
Anyways, all that to say is that the morale is high, but it is difficult for the Ukrainian soldiers right now, especially in Bakhmut. He in this video is also saying that they don't really get reinforcements. So their rotation right now, they are 20 days nonstop on that front line without any rotation. And of course, the Ukrainian army is not perfect. We have some issues as well with logistics and good commanders. So it is difficult, and war is chaotic sometimes. So but I just want to show you guys how difficult it is. It's not an easy war. Russia is still a powerful country with, big army, very large army, and they can manage to do this for many more months, if not a year or two. So it's a grinding war, and that's why we need your support, guys. If you can donate the money to any donations for the army, Red Cross, doesn't matter, do it because we need that help from you guys. And the last video I wanted to show you is another kind of last comical video of how the Russian army is equipped. So let's get to it.
Такие охуенные каски пришли со
These are
46-го
helmets.
края. Это просто вот руками ее сжали, вот она разрывается. Посмотрите, вот это обычным перочинным ножиком, вот просто вот она снимается. Там про пулю даже
So he
слова
says
нет,
that
вот
this can be
элементарно.
just like taken off with like a normal
Спасибо
knife.
администрации
It
Ставропольского
looks like it's
края.
plywood
Огромное.
or some sort
И
of
вот
hard
зам
foam.
главы
Absolutely
администрации, да,
pathetic.
который там орал, что, блин, мы все в бой пойдем. Одень эту каску, пойди в бой. Лично первый. А мы потом за тобой.
Так,
So you can
братва.
see, guys, that the Russian army and their equipment is in terrible, catastrophic shape. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that money that was meant to build these helmets went into someone's pockets, funneled away, and now these soldiers have to fight with plywood helmets, literally, and rusted AK-47s, literally original from 1940s. So that's the reality. But again, the Russians have thousands of these soldiers, and they're going to continue pushing. So here's to that. Let's hope for a quick victory for the Ukraine army. It's wishful thinking, but with your guys' help, we're going to be able to do that. And that's it. So I'm wishing you a great day. Thank you for watching me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.